So Jeff, in your experience, you've done again a few of these ERP implementations from the customer side, if you will. What would you say are 2 to 3 best practices that you've learned over the years in implementing ERP solutions?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the first keys is really understanding, we kind of touched on this previously, but understanding what is key that you want to recreate. I know a lot of times we may talk about, hey, we want to bring over this data, or we want to bring over AP data, or we need to bring over our payroll data, but specifically identifying what is the key element that we need to preserve. If we have to capture this one data element, we need to make sure that it's in a format that can be reported against. That's certainly one of the scenarios that I ran across. Previously, we were trying to go through an implementation, and it completely fell apart because the consultant didn't understand some of the different data elements that we wanted to capture. And when it started to go live, they weren't set up for that. They weren't prepared for it. They were capturing data that didn't allow us to report on these key elements, and ultimately it caused the entire project to fall apart. But making sure you understand and communicate what are the key elements that you want to preserve, what is the items that you need to, whether it's through reporting or data processing, what are the key elements that you need to preserve. Setting up regular checkpoints to make sure that you're kind of managing on track. Understanding your data is kind of one of the last ones. Are you in the process of making changes? What is your data really pretty clean, or as we're trying to capture information, is it going to be a hodgepodge of, we made 3 or 4 different changes over the past 5 years, and so some of this historical data will fit one format, some of it will fit another format, or we're able to capture data from these periods in one fashion, but not the others. So really kind of understanding the quality of your data as it relates to coming across, and then I think trying to understand when you go through testing, making sure you've really thought through all the different scenarios. Certainly when it comes to automation, we're trying to identify the routine, but a lot of times there are exceptions, and trying to make sure that does this new process capture those exceptions, or if we've got a lot of different scenarios that we're trying to maybe not even automate, but just that we're keying in and capturing and reporting. If you're trying to, when it's all said and done, let's take a look at our balance sheet, let's take a look at our income statement. Does it reconcile to prior periods? Are we generating AP to processing for expense reports, to processing vendors, to processing wire transfers, ACH transfers? Are we managing, all the different intercompany? What is our intercompany process like? Do we have some multi-currency changes that we need to track? And then a lot of times even considering what are our outside partners, your banking, your vendors, your auditors, your tax accountants, what sort of information do they need to see? Whether it's certainly with your tax accountants to say, we're capturing travel data, we're capturing meals and expenses that they'll need to make sure that they can uniquely capture, and just looking at all the different scenarios that may occur that you can incorporate to your testing to make sure that when it's all said and done, you have a high degree of confidence that the system ultimately meets what it is that you're trying to track. And then I mentioned the touch points, so I think that involves both working with your consultants to make sure that you're going on time, but at the same time working with your team to make sure that they're inevitably doing a lot of their day-to-day work, but that they're kind of keeping up with the needs that they have with regards to going through the training webinars, or digging into the system, or helping to pull down and reconcile data before we send it over into our new system. I think those are some of the key ones. I'm sure. What have you seen as far as the keys that help make a successful implementation?
I think first and foremost, and this goes whether it be an ERP or any other project, communication. between the teams, and to lay out a predetermined format and timing of communication. Ad hoc communication is fine, but you need to have those weekly status meetings and/or meetings to go over the project plan, and to hold each other accountable when we start slipping on the timeline. A second one, the old cliche, start with the end in mind, very definitely applies as a best practice in ERP implementations. We need to know what reports have to be the output. So are we planning the configuration to hit those reporting milestones, or the important reports that we need for our board of directors or upper management? Those are probably the two biggest, because it's not uncommon that communication starts slipping a little bit as teams get busy. We're working on data conversion. We're working on pulling the data out for the conversion team. So we tend to get into our little burrows and not come out until we're finished. But it's important to check up to see where we are in the process. And again, I can't reiterate enough that the reporting package that we need to hit is one of the key factors in any project.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too, in the sense of, we tend to go through the process of trying to recreate what they have. And I think sometimes that steps back into the quality of the data to say, partly, how do we, the reporting piece alone is a lot of times one of the opportunities, whether that the new system provides a lot of enhancements and a lot of new opportunities. So I think along those lines, when you're kind of going through some of the new reporting, making sure that it reconciles, making sure that your quality or your data syncs with, what your expectations are and what your historical data was.
Right. Yep, exactly. All right, well, Jeff, thank you. This has been a great conversation, and hopefully this is helpful to those who are planning an implementation or ERP selection process. And again, hope this is helpful information for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly, hopefully they can kind of pull from all of our years of experience.